you're trying to build muscle and strength, look, I'm here to tell you it's going to be really hard if you don't eat these next 3 foods. We rank them in order. The best foods to build muscle and strength. You guys want to guess?
Doritos.
No.
That's top of mind for me.
Yeah, that's bulking food. Right?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that, bro, because that's crazy. No, so we get recommendations for, great ways to get people's attention. And one of them was like, what are the 3 best foods for muscle and strength? And of course, there's so much individual variance, so much nuance with this, but there are foods that are definitely better for this than others. And so I picked the 3, and the first 2 are, protein containing. Obviously, protein is essential.
Steak
for
has got to
muscle.
be obviously
Has
one
to
of
be
the
one of the first. Yeah.
It is. The last one, by the way, is not a protein, but we'll get there. Okay, so yes, beef. Beef is one of the most anabolic foods for 2 reasons. Obviously, it's high in protein, so that's great. But it's one of the highest in natural creatine, and it's also super high in nutrients. In fact, it's one of the only foods you could get away with eating on its own and probably never get a nutrient deficiency if you just ate red meat.
You could survive, for sure.
Not saying that's what you should do.
No.
It's not ideal. In fact, I was with some friends this weekend, and one of my buddies, he's a new friend of mine. He's a CrossFit guy, and he had his wife next to him.
I mean, friends with the CrossFit guy, huh?
Well, he's actually a pastor at the church, but he also does CrossFit. Great guy, right?
Sal's really branching out on us. I like this.
In fact, I told him, like, hey, when you're ready to stop overtraining, let me know. But super great guy, love this dude, and he's like into working out, right? And he loves meat, and so his wife was there. His wife's a doctor, and he's like, hey, I thought he wanted me to be on. I could tell he thought I was going to be on his side. He's like, hey, Sal, so. Real loud with his wife. So carnivore diet, right? What do you think of that? I'm like, it's not. I think it's ideal.
How long do you have?
His wife's like, oh wait,
carnivore, and he's a CrossFitter.
He doesn't do carnivore, but he loves meat so much.
Like, damn, that's really
considering it, and I'm like, dude, it'll kill you.
Yeah, definitely not.
But okay, so obviously you need to have balance, but on its own, you can get away with just eating beef because it's so nutrient dense. You can't do that with any other food. Like if you just picked one food and just ate that one food, the odds that you'll have a nutrient deficiency are something like 100%.
Pretty high. Yeah.
Beef is so nutrient dense, you could probably get away with it, and some people do. And then it's so high in creatine. And before creatine supplements existed, bodybuilders would speculate on this all the time. They would switch different protein sources, eat the same amount of protein, same amount of calories, and they would all come back and say, I don't know what it is, but when I put a lot of red meat in my diet, I'm just stronger and I just build more muscle. And it's got to be the creatine. It's the highest in creatine, and creatine isn't just a muscle building nutrient. It's also a longevity nutrient. We now know this. The data now shows creatine is good for health, longevity, brain function.
It's been proven through all these studies.
All these things. And beef is just nutrients, protein. It's got the creatine in there. It's like, and it has been the muscle building food of choice now for a very, very long time.
It's too bad that what would you say? Was it the 80s, 90s?
Yeah.
When did the bad rap for red meat happen?
Yeah.
It was around that time.
Yeah, that's when you had all the
80s was where's the beef, right? And then it kind of moved from there.
You have all the skewed data on saturated fat. Now I'll be clear, there are polymorphisms. There are some individuals when they eat a diet that's high in saturated fat, their blood lipids don't do so well. And those individuals need to be a little bit more careful. But other people, it's not that it's actually perfectly fine. And especially if you eat, what we would say is high quality red meat, right? Grass fed, better fatty acid profile, higher in omega-3s, better ratio of omega-3 to omega-6s, higher in CLA, which is another healthy fat. It's just good for you. And again, people will point to the studies about, meat, and they don't tend to do in those studies is parse out processed meat products. So it's like people eating a lot of meat, like, well, there's hot dogs in there and stuff like bologna. But no, real red meat, just good old fashioned red meat for most people is an incredible, it's a health food. And for strength training, it's one of the best things you can eat.
I wish like game meat was more accessible, there's got to be something to that of the health of the actual animal and how that translates back over to when you're consuming it. I always thought that there was like a connection there for sure. But now that we have like resources out there, we have things like Butcher Box that make it easy to get.
Yeah.
You know, that's been game changing.
I mean, wouldn't you say that? I mean, I guess there's a little bit of a difference, like with game meat versus grass-fed beef. Grass-fed and finished beef, I would say, is pretty similar.
It's similar to game meat. Yeah,
I would
I think a little more like fatty acid, like it might be a little higher.
I mean, there's a big argument maybe for the game being lower stress, maybe because they're not confined areas and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, how happy are the cows that are in the,
it's funny.
it depends on the farm, right?
I had a vegan once try to make that argument with me, a little off topic, but he said, how healthy do you think meat is when that animal's under stress when it's being killed or whatever? I said, that's how all animals are when they're being
all of them that die. it's kind of a stressful process.
Yeah.
No, I would think the part that would be most stressful for the one, like you have like the chickens that they confine, all smash them in
what
an
you
area.
tend to see in the meat
awful.
is not a good fatty acid profile. You tend to see more omega-6s, just more fat in general. So like if you look at grass-fed meat versus grain-fed meat, 10 ounces versus 10 ounces, it's just leaner. It's just leaner and it tastes a little different. It's just better for you. But again, generally speaking, like this is muscle building food.
Yep.
And I used to find this especially impactful for my female clients. And I think it's because they were more likely to take red meat out of their diet. So when I would, kind of have them track and I'd look at their diet and I could see, okay, well, let's have you eat some more red meat. And they would all come back with better energy, better strength.
I think that all comes from the adage of like less calories, right?
Yes.
Because fish and chicken breasts were like a part of their diet, and it's like, which is not; those aren't bad.
No.
It's just that they're not as nutrient dense as the beef is.
Next up is eggs. Now, eggs, the protein in eggs is so bioavailable and so high quality. By some measurements, it's the best protein. By other measurements, you could put way up higher. But eggs are just, and then these are like these are nutrient powerhouses. Some people refer to eggs as nature's multivitamin. They're high in a nutrient known as choline, which some people argue is an essential micronutrient. And there's a lot of people are actually deficient in choline. A lot of people who have issues with what's called methylation. And deficiencies in choline result in muscle weakness and poor cognitive function. So if you ever buy like a brain supplement, 9 out of 10 times choline will be in there.
Yeah, it's like a main brain vitamin.
Yeah, in fact, I brought this up a long time ago. Studies on children. Children, babies and toddlers that eat eggs have higher IQs, and they think it's the choline that's in the egg yolk.
So, okay, we're definitely going to circle back to Doritos. Second thing to circle back to, Doug, I sent over a link to a Harvard med student that did an experiment with eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Ate 720 eggs, I think. And
his cholesterol was fine.
Yeah. So we could talk, circle back and do that too. Another example of something that got a bad rap in the 80s and 90s.
I mean, can you think of a better food that got like a terrible rap? Like, I mean, it was like, it's on, it's off, it's horrible, it's good. It's like, it was like ping ponged all throughout my childhood of being like, good for you, not good for you.
I actually hate the taste of eggs, but I eat them almost daily just because of the value of them, because it's such a great balanced way to get good protein and good healthy cholesterol. But
yes, and speaking of
never
that,
liked the taste of them.
Speaking of that, dietary cholesterol, I've said this in older podcast episodes. Dietary cholesterol in studies, not your blood cholesterol, but dietary cholesterol has been connected to strength gains. I've personally experimented with this. I've had other people experiment with this. This is an old bodybuilding hack where you radically increase your dietary cholesterol and you see strength gains, and it works.
Yeah.
It works. If I average, let's say 3 eggs a day, and then I move up to, let's say 10 or 12 eggs a day, and I control my calories, everything else is the same, within 3 or 4 days, I'm adding 5 to 10 pounds on most lifts. I'm just stronger. And there's some evidence to suggest that this has to do with your central nervous system. It has to do with muscle repair and recovery. When you strength train and create damage, your muscles suck up cholesterol and use it as a building block. So dietary cholesterol might contribute to faster repair.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, a lot of the strength and power lifters, they would like seek out egg yolks and then also like heavy cream.
Yep.
Right. And they would add that in their diet. And then all of a sudden that was just kind of a lost, pursuit.
So when we were first having this conversation way back when you were talking about your experiment with this, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but I shared with you that over the course of those 3 years of me, tracking so diligently for shows and stuff like that, I nailed down like what was the most anabolic breakfast meal set up for my workouts was, and it was steak and 4 eggs, about an hour and a half before I went and lifted. And so that nothing gave me a better workout than eating that. And that became like my ritual. I had this coffee shop that I would go down to every single morning, have my cup of coffee and load up on that breakfast and then let it sit for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then hit my workout. And I had the best workouts after eating that.
Vince Garanda, who was probably one of the first kind of bodybuilding, quote unquote, scientists, right? Somebody kind of looked at the science of things. He would advocate for like a 12 whole egg a day diet for his bodybuilders, and people got tremendous success. And till this day, people experiment with stuff like that. Where they'll find some of his old articles and do it, and then they'll comment in forums. And usually people will come back and be like, there's something to this. And I think it's dietary cholesterol. In fact, when they do studies on egg whites versus whole eggs, control for protein, control for calories, whole eggs double, I think they double the protein synthesis signal. And
that's a lot.
Yeah. And they're like, well, what's causing this? And the speculation is the dietary cholesterol. So eggs are, for sure, and they've been considered muscle building foods, a muscle building food forever. Now, lastly, I wanted to include something that wasn't a protein based food, and I wanted to include a starch because, if all things being equal, your protein's adequate, fat is adequate, your workouts are good. Carbohydrates contribute to strength. They just do. The studies are plenty on this, where you see low carb diets compared to higher carb diets, all things being controlled. And you need that glycogen for explosive power, for strength. And one of the best sources for starchy carbohydrates is white rice. And the reason why is it's so easy to digest. There's a lot of sources of carbohydrates that you can eat, but many times they cause gastric distress for people. White rice almost always is easy to digest. This is probably why white rice is the choice for bodybuilders. This is like the number one choice for bodybuilders.
So great that you put that on this list, because I wouldn't have guessed this on this list. And I was, before we got on the podcast today, I was just answering a DM from a lady that was like, what's with the white rice? I feel like you and every other fitness person I know that shows their food is always eating with white rice. And I'm like, I guess I never thought of it from somebody else's perspective who doesn't pay attention to that stuff. And
why not pasta? Why not potato?
Yeah, exactly. There's all these other choices. Why do I always eat white rice? And it's like, and this is what I was explaining to her. And there's also another part that I explained to her that's not exactly aligning with what you're talking about, but it's also one of the easiest things to make and measure.
Oh, yeah.
So like when
you're,
I mean, it's just so easy to scoop one, and it's precise, right? There's no like, oh, I wonder if that's off or not. Like there's so many ways, like food can be off really easy. It's just a very accurate, quick way to get an easy digesting carbohydrate. I think that has a lot to do with it too.
This isn't communicated so much these days, but it used to be communicated that brown rice was better.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually not. First off, they both affect your blood sugar levels right around the same, so it's not that big of a difference, because that's the argument people will make. In brown rice, the fiber or the hole in brown rice has what are called anti-nutrients. It actually prevents the absorption of certain nutrients. And in some cases, if you go to like third world countries, they don't do brown rice because you start to see nutrient deficiencies. White rice, far easier to digest. It absorbs very well, doesn't have anti-nutrients. And it's a great source of starchy carbohydrates that then fuel you through your workouts.
I'm always reminded of Mitch Hedberg's joke with this is like, anytime you want 2,000 of something, rice.
No.
What? What's that from?
That's Mitch Hedberg.
Who's
I
that?
don't know what that is.
You don't get that?
No, who is that? Doug, do you get it? Did I go over your head too?
I don't.
He's a comedian.
Dylan? No.
Okay. What is the 2,000?
Please help me. Whenever you want 2,000 of something, and then he. Anyways,
come on. Now I want to.
The joke.
Come on.
The whole joke is that you eat rice whenever you want 2,000 of something.
Is that because it's so easy to track and it's even?
No, because you get so many kernels of it, dude. It's a joke.
We gotta see
bro. That was
Please help me comments. These guys, it's a classic Mitch Hedberg joke.
I never heard that one.
Yeah, it's all right.
I never heard that. Hey, anyway, so go back to Doritos.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let me tell you that since it was
Please.
yeah. So Katrina and I running errands this weekend, and I actually saw that she sent the text before she even asked me, so I didn't see it, and I was driving, and she's like, "Oh, I just sent the guys if they wanted to do a Doritos advertisement." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, no, Doritos, which is Lay's, I believe. I think Lay's is owned. Does Lay's own Doritos? Is that correct?" Yeah, I think that's the actual company.
Yeah,
Anyways,
like Frito-Lay
they reached out to Mind Pump wanting to do advertising on the show. And so that was a big joke through the weekend is if could we do Dorito commercial?
How would that even work?
Yeah, there's no, and Sal probably hit it the best way we possibly do it is we just had to come out and just be like, Doritos paid us so much goddamn money that
It's not good for you.
Yes,
It gives
it's
us
not good
diarrhea.
for you, but we like money.
That's how, it's what's funny about some of these companies that will try and ask us for sponsorship. It's like, did you do your homework? Do you even know?
No, they don't.
No, they just look at our reach, I think.
Yeah,
right?
that's what you just pop up as influential in a space that you're trying to get into, and many times they have no idea that we've probably openly talked about the brand not being good.
I mean, speaking of Doritos, hey, sorry to interrupt you. Look, are you lifting weights, eating a ton of food, and struggling? You're not packing on any muscle. You're not building any muscle at all. You're not getting stronger. Well, check it out. We have a hard gainer guide. This can be your ultimate resource to turn that around. Pack on some muscle mass with our hard gainer guide. It's totally free. You can get it by downloading it, clicking on the link in the description below. That's got to be one of the most, it's like quintessential
that is the
processed
most
food.
Yeah, when you talk about because you like to talk a lot about the science that goes into creating something.
It's a master class.
It is.
What they've done.
The color, the texture, the sound, the feel. Yeah. They're probably the shining example of who's probably done the most research on all of those things to make something addictive, right? So it's like it would be literally
they hit you with everything.
I mean, it arguably may. I mean, Justin made a point. Justin's like, I think we could sell cigarettes better.
At least they have nicotine.
He's like, at least nicotine has some cognitive benefits that we can pitch. And so he goes, like,
you
where are we going with Doritos? There's
Doritos,
no way we can go anywhere with Doritos. Like, so I think that's so true. Like, it literally stands for everything that we try and inform the audience on when it comes to hyper palatable foods and how much they are engineered to get you to eat more.
I just had this conversation this weekend. We went over some new friend's house, and there was a couple there. I told them what I did, and so we were talking about food, and we were talking, and they were familiar. They actually heard a podcast where this was explained. Where the tobacco industry, when it was under fire by regulations, a lot of those scientists moved over to the food industry. And they used their talent to figure out how to engineer food to be addictive. That was literally what they were doing. How do we make food? Like, what makes food so pleasurable? Let's see if we can hack this. Let's break it down. Let's invest millions. And now, of course, we're into the billions of dollars. And can we make food irresistible the way that cigarettes are? That was the goal. And that's what they accomplished. That's literally what they accomplished with some of these foods that we have out there. And you're not going to win. Like, if you eat these foods and you think, oh, I can do this and still maintain a lean body fat percentage, like, no, you're not going to win. It's just not going to happen.
This is why I think the conversation around calories in versus calories out is just not enough. It's
not complete.
No, it's just, it's not, it doesn't tell the whole story. Yes, obviously, it doesn't change the law of thermodynamics. That will still apply. That'll always still apply. It's a law. But it really is misleading for the average person because then they assume like, okay, well then so long as I stay in this range, I can pretty much have what I want. And that approach, in my experience, is just not successful for people. In fact, I'm far better off actually not even worrying about the conversation around calories in, calories out if I could teach them to make better choices like around whole foods. Because what I've learned is if I can get them to do that, it's amazing what the body does.
Naturally.
Yes. I mean, I feel like this whole process of documenting me coming back to the early part of the journey, a lot of the questions, well, what's your calorie intake? What do you do? I'm like, what I'm doing is actually, I'm not really worried about the calories. Protein is the only thing that I'm really concerned about. And I'm actually allowing my body to tell me when it's hungry. And if I feel hungry, it's 10 o'clock at night and I get that appetite where I can feel it.
Feed it.
I'm going to feed it. I'm just going to make a good choice. I'm going to go get a protein centric, meaning it needs to have 30, 40 or more grams of protein in it. So a protein heavy meal. And I'm going to eat till I'm satisfied. And I'm not going to worry about where it lands. And ironically, it's pretty wild how the calories just kind of landed like in this it almost looks like it was methodical, but it really wasn't. It was just listening to the body.
There's this terrible misunderstanding that humans are just eating machines. If you just put food in front of us, we'll just eat ourselves into oblivion. That's not true. That's only true when we put food in front of us that's been engineered to make us overeat. If you put whole natural foods in front of us, we have natural systems that kick
limiters.
in. Now, you're not going to be 5% body fat doing this. At some point, Adam's going to have to track, right? But for most people, if you just kind of listen to your body and you don't have this crazy dysfunctional relationship with food, right? And you just eat when you're hungry and eat, like you said, protein-centric, whole natural foods, you tend to fall into this nice, healthy body fat percentage. The reason why a majority of people are not there is because we're surrounded by foods that have been designed. They've been designed to hijack all that stuff and overcome all that stuff, and you're just not going to win. You're literally trying to beat something that has been engineered to beat you, and these people are a lot smarter than you think. There's been a lot of money invested in this. It's just not going to happen. That's why avoiding these things is probably the single step, the single most powerful step you could do to helping yourself be fit, fit and healthy.
Agreed. Doug, did you pull up that Harvard?
Yeah, I did. I actually had to subscribe to the article.
Did?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But I did pull it up, and I will display.
And it was a Harvard med student, and I think he went on a mission. I think it was 720 eggs in 30 days, something like that.
That's correct. Yeah.
So 30 eggs a day, or no? What's it? Was that
30 a day? It ended up being 24 eggs per day.
24 eggs per day. So this was sent to me over what's Chris? Remember the Chris Pugnito or Pugnito? It starts with a P. He's the financial guy. He came over.
I forgot his name.
No, that's Chris is his name, but I'm thinking of this podcast.
Yeah.
Anyways, he sent this over to me. Like, oh, it's this big deal, and I was like, well, it isn't really. And here's the part that why to me it's cool.
So what happened? The guy's blood lipids were fine after.
Yeah, he got healthier.
Yeah,
like he ate 24 eggs a day. Literally, that's like he lived off of eggs for 30 days. And now here's the part that it doesn't disclose that I wanted to explain to him. Is like I said, I could have done the same experiment with mint chip ice cream and shown the same thing. So what you need to do that math on 24 eggs.
That's all he ate.
Yeah, that's all he ate.
So his calories are low.
Yeah, it's all he ate. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure if that's all he ate.
If that's all he ate, then his calories were low.
Yeah. So do the math. What's 24 times 70 calories? 60 or whatever what eggs
it's not much.
It's not. It's literally like a 1,400 calorie diet or 1,500
you'll
calories.
lose weight on that.
Right. And so that was the point I was trying to make to him is that, I mean, obviously what the guy was doing, and to his point, who's Chris's point, was sitting over to me, oh, this is kind of cool. This is how getting out the bad name that eggs have. I said, yeah, it kind of does, but then it kind of doesn't, because if you eat, and this is what I try and explain to people all the time, that here's where the law of thermodynamics does definitely apply. If your calorie maintenance, let's say, is 2,000 calories, that's what your body needs to sustain, and you go for 30 days and you eat mint chip ice cream only, 1,500 calories of it, I'll show improved blood markers, which is kind of crazy to think that. But that just shows the power of the law of thermodynamics if you just stay underneath that. Yeah. But that was
there are people that have done that, by the way. They'll be like, I'm just going to eat McDonald's for 30 days. And
I've seen somebody do that with cookies. Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, he's going to feel like crap. Like you're going to feel terrible.
Yeah. You're not
30 days of ice cream.
No. You're not going to feel good. Where he probably felt pretty good.
He felt okay.
Yeah.
He's not lacking any nutrients with the eggs. He's got proteins and fats. He's got the essentials. He's probably okay.
I wanted to do the math though on the macros.
1440. Oh, you mean total macros?
Oh, do you see 1440?
I did the math right here.
Oh, okay. So 1440.
If that's all he ate, though, he might have not just only eaten that.
He did eat some other things. It looks like.
Oh, he did.
Yes,
he did. I thought I read it was.
He added 60 grams of net carbs a day. Fruits like bananas, berries, things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's just trying to show that you're not going to get crazy.
Okay, well, that's good then. See, because I thought it was only he was eating that low calorie. I'm like, well, it's not the best experiment, because if you eat in a caloric deficit, you're going to see it improve. I mean, this is the argument that Lane always makes to people with all the fear mongering around. Yeah. It's like, well, if you eat really low calories of what are those foods, you're going to see an improvement in all that. Yeah. I thought it was an interesting experiment.
Hey, do you guys get in this trap with your kids? Well, it's not a trap. It's a good time where you buy toys because you like the toys. And they play it. You guys do that too?
Every dad does that.
yeah.
That's so great.
Every dad is guilty of that.
You know,
That's a hack.
I'm so lucky because my he's almost 4 now, my son. He likes stuff that I like, you know, which is cool.
Yeah.
So like we go to the toy store and he wants the the crystal growing kit. I'm like, okay, let's get that, you know. He likes carnivorous plants. I'm like, that's fun. He likes airplanes. So I'm buying like airplanes off Amazon that fly around, and we're doing this. We're doing all this cool stuff. Now my wife, you know, she sat me down. She's like, you can't get him a toy every day. So I'm like, I know, you're right. But it's so fun to do this kind of stuff.
I do think that's probably the biggest challenge. I mean, so Saturday, Katrina had like a girls' day, took off. By the way, there's this really cool thing over in Morgan Hill. They've only been doing it for a few months. It's like a trolley. It looks like one of those San Francisco trolleys. And they take you around all the kind of like small mom and pop wineries in Morgan Hill.
Oh.
They work with like 30 of them, and they had a blast.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah, you could do it 2 ways. You could either pay for an individual seat for like $100-something, I think is what it was. And it does it all day long. Or you can rent the whole trolley, you know, for a couple grand, and you can have it all to yourself with your family and friends. So I think we're going to do it with the company. For the staff.
Of course.
Yeah, I think it would be a
great idea.
They had live music at some of the wineries they went to and everything. So they had an absolute best. Anyways, point of me telling you that was that I had a day, just Max and I, and you know, it's funny, and it's just a reflection of this is something I have to work on, right? Like I do not like when everybody is buying my son so much stuff. Yeah, and selfishly, part of it is because I feel like I get robbed of that. Yeah, it's like I feel like he's already getting so much stuff. Yeah. And then I have these moments where it's like, oh, we never have like a boys' day, and I want to go take him to go buy something or do something. And I'm just like, I want to so bad because I don't ever get to do that for him because he's constantly get it. But then I'm like, it goes against what I'm trying to do, which is not get the kid toys all the time or buy stuff for him. So it's definitely a struggle. And of course, I gave in and still went over and you see in the mall, your kids would love this. So at Oak Ridge, they have you can make your own slime. It's like a whole thing. You go there, you pick the color out, you can make it smell a certain way, you put these toys and things into it, you play with it, you build it, then you put it up, and then they label it and everything. It's cool. It's like a whole process. They have the store is little tables where the kids sit, and there's a section, there's steps, and they get to watch them mix it all together. It's just a cool.
Oh, that's fun.
Right. So I went and took him to do that, and he gets a kick out of it. But I mean, again, to your point,
well, my little one, she's almost 2. First off, she's like getting into. It's so funny when they make that transition. I remember when my 4-year-old did this. He was just like, you know, kind of, you know, cool little kid, did everything we wanted, not a big deal. All of a sudden, he became a toddler, and he's like, "No, I'm doing what I want. I'm not listening." My daughter just hit that. She's hilarious too. She'll get angry. And then she'll walk away and she'll just start knocking things off the table. And you'll hear something fall. I'll look over and it's like, oh, Dahlia's throwing things again.
I did that.
Yeah, because she's pissed off. But anyway, Jessica bought these stickers that are jewels. So they're little tiny jewels, but they're like little stickers. So now I go home and my daughter is bedazzled. I mean, everything. Like her shoes have jewels on them. Yeah. If I'm cooking and I feel like she's hugging me, I don't realize that she's sticking jewels on me. Yeah. So I go out and people are like, "Oh, I like your pants." I'm like, I got like 6 jewels stuck on the all over the house, dude. She's sticking little jewels everywhere. It's hilarious. Stuff, but she's becoming this little independent, little sassy little kid.
Oh, shit.
It's cracking
up. Justin, what are you doing this? I saw you before we left, before the weekend, you were shooting a commercial. What were you doing?
I was, yeah. I spent some time when I was here and the guys were kind of putting the racks together. We were able to kind of shoot that process. And then I actually did a commercial for PRX. Shooting with one of the folding profile racks. It's the full cage folding one.
Is that where both sides fold in?
The ones both sides fold in, and it has like 4 posts instead of just 2. And what's cool about it is so it has those safety connectors. It's like
straps.
The straps are like canvas.
Oh,
yeah, so I got those for it, so I could kind of also do like, you know, some of those where we're doing some rack pulls or we're getting underneath it and we're kind of starting from a dead stop. And so I could do some cool like squats like that. But I just like having a full cage. It's a different feel than having like just the 2 posts for that reason with the safeties. So I preferred it. And so it's been rad.
PRX completely revolutionized home gyms by themselves because before, if you got a rack for your house, first of all, the ones they sold for your home they weren't that great. They were kind of janky. They take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
If you wanted like a real cage for your house, you'd have to go buy a commercial one, and they took up a lot of space. Theirs fold into the wall. I think they come off the wall like 8 inches.
4 for the regular one. 8 is the big one.
8's for this one.
Like literally 8 inches off the wall.
It's 4 posts, and they fold in together.
So you have in your garage, you fold it, you could park your car, everything.
Yeah.
When you unfold it, it's more, I'm not making this up, it is more stable than a cage at the gym.
Yeah.
Because it's attached to the wall, because of the way it's set up, it is super, super stable.
I'm so passionate about their equipment that when I'm walking my neighborhood and I have someone that has their garage open and I see stuff like that, I feel so inclined to go tell like the owner, like,
especially if they're doing exercises and they're working out.
I see it all the time. Like, I've definitely, there's a few people in my neighborhood that have got like the Rogue setups and everything like that, and it's just like it takes up half their garage. And I'm like, dude, you know that you could literally have a better system that actually folds away. You can actually park your cars in the garage.
Well, and I get like I used to get that sort of pushback. I want a full cage and I want like, you know, everything, like, because I lift heavy and I want all this set up. And so the way they have it all set up too, I still have a pull-up bar on there because that was part of why the full cage wasn't able to fold. And so they figured out how to like, you can basically like unhinge it, and then the pull-up bar kind of swings down, and so that way it still folds over each other. So they're just, I mean, the engineering has definitely like they've figured things out, like some cool equipment.
Were we one of the first to have that rack like that? Is that why they had it, or was that just part of our contract?
It just kind of came out at the same time that we were remodeling the gym, and I was like, yeah, this is an option. I want to do this one.
So it was kind of new.
It was new.
Okay, I was wondering if Katrina set that up as part of the deal, or we did them a solid because it was like one of the new ones. Like I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they're sending me something else too. I'll talk about another time, but like I'm excited about those. They're like these arms that we can use for a lot of push press.
What are those called?
What?
You know, like for football players.
Oh,
those
really?
are super popular. What are those called?
I'm trying to think of what they're called, but they're like they have like a hinge at the top and their arms, and then you can do push press. You can do like overhead. You can do rows like explosive.
I saw a trainer doing like these like a snatch move on it.
Yes, that exactly.
Which is really
you can
cool.
do power moves with it. Yeah.
What a fun company that would be to work for. I would love to design exercise.
Do you guys remember that they were a Shark Tank company?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they originally blew up.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Look, we have a free guide. It's the benefits of eating whole foods. This gives you a shopping list, what foods are best for proteins, fats, carbohydrates. There's recipe samples. It's all based on real, whole, natural foods, and it's a free guide. It's totally free. You can get it if you go to wholefoodsguide.com or by clicking on the link in the description below. Cool, so I want to bring up a study that we can make some speculation on. I want to hear what you guys think based off of it. So the title of it...
It's bullshit.
Yeah, no. The title of it... So this is at University of California did the study. The title said, Manliness Concerns Impede Forgiveness of Coworkers. Okay, so here we go. Here's the summary. Okay, the more men are concerned about appearing masculine, the less likely they will forgive a coworker for a transgression, such as missing an important meeting, a study has found. What's more, such men are also more likely to seek revenge or avoid the transgressor, which contributes to an unhealthy and less effective work environment.
What a weird study to do in the first place.
So now here's how people are going to take this and run with it in the wrong way. People are going to be like, oh, masculinity, toxic. No. The more men are concerned about appearing masculine, that's the key of the study.
Right.
Because the false understanding of masculinity is what leads to this kind of crap, not actual masculinity. And we make this argument all the time.
There's a big difference.
Yes, when you look at the data on what people would label as toxic masculinity, like aggression and violence and et cetera, the vast majority of men that exhibit those things didn't have a father. They didn't have a masculine role model.
Yep.
So their masculine role model was media.
It's like from Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah. And what media portrays as masculinity is terrible. It's not good. It's is toxic.
Joke. Yeah.
So now they're hyper fake masculine. And so men who want to appear masculine, that's insecurity, probably because they didn't have a dad or didn't have a father, whatever. And so that insecurity comes out as this fake masculinity, not real masculinity. I find these studies so interesting.
I think it's so weird to do so as a study like that. I think
these studies are funded partially or get airtime partially because it
It's trying to promote some kind of narrative somewhere. Yeah.
Correct.
And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Because why would you put money in that? That's the stupid stuff.
I know you watch it. I mean, it's definitely Katrina and I's guilty pleasure. What's it called?
Love is Blind.
Love is Blind.
Oh, they got a new season.
Yes,
we haven't started it yet.
Yes, the new season's out. And so the reason why I'm bringing it up, so it'll be interesting now that you know it's out, and you get caught up to where I'm at. So we were watching trash TV this last week, right? That was the choice. This was actually one of the comments I was talking. Katrina was like, God, these guys are so feminine. All the dudes, and even the dudes that kind of look masculine are like just feminine as shit. And it's interesting because in this experiment, these girls really fall in love with that. And then they get out into the real world with them and live with them, and you just see that change. Like, it's real sexy for conversation reasons behind a wall when you're first getting to know him. Like, oh, he's so sensitive.
It's like they say all the right things.
He's so open-minded, and he's all these great
he's really
qualities.
Interested in the same things as me.
Yes. It's like, oh, he's like, we're like best friends.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah. And then they start living together, and you realize, like, oh, maybe you didn't want somebody.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is kind of what's happened in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years is, I think there's been such
we fight over our shoes.
we've been challenging masculinity so much in the last decade and a half or whatever, that you have a whole cohort of young women growing up that think they want that, and then they pursue it, and then they quickly realize, and some don't even realize. I think they just think that one guy was a bad choice. It's like, no, I think that the guy that you think that you want to attract because of those feminine traits that you like is not necessarily what you want in a life partner, and someone that you go build a life together. And maybe all those kind of masculine traits that the media has been, bashing for the last decade, maybe some of them you like more than you realize it. And I feel like you're watching that kind of unfold in this episode.
I think it's just interesting that we've now had a few decades of lack of fathers, and we blame that on and we blame all these problems on too much masculinity. There's not enough. You need more dads. That's what you need, because these are kids, boys in particular, that are being raised by moms and teachers. Yeah. And they need to
learn how to control, a lot of these violent, tendencies, and get a healthy outlet for that. Like how to treat people with kindness and respect, and honor them, and all this stuff comes from a good father role model.
Well, I mean, if a group of men, when you have a group of men together, the man that tends to get the most respect is the one that's most disciplined. It's not the one that's undisciplined. So the guy that's loudmouth, can beat everybody up and actually does, they lose respect. But the guy that can, I remember like one time going out with a pro MMA fighter, and I'll never forget, we went out to a restaurant, they had a bar there, we were hanging out. Guy recognized him and started trying to mess with him. And my buddy, who could have beat him up while eating a sandwich at the same time, ends up buying him a drink, diffuse the whole situation. Yeah. And the amount of respect I had for this guy, because I know
that's the ultimate.
I'm like, man, he could have killed him, but he totally was chill about
knowing,
it.
that he could have destroyed him, and he chose that path.
So much respect, and that's what you learn with a good father, is you learn that discipline, and there's something underneath it if they need it, but they don't use it. And unfortunately, young men without dads, they fall into like one or two categories. One is, the world wants me to be feminine, or two, I need to be like what music and media says I should be, which is this like gross depiction of masculinity. Yeah,
it's all distorted.
Yeah, not the real thing.
I read an article yesterday on the rise of fitness trainers. They predict it's supposed to climb like another 4% in this year.
Awesome.
Really? I think it's just important to bring up, because we talked about, and this is to our coaches and trainers that follow, listen, or are part of our program. This fear around things like GLP-1s is going to just destroy the market.
It's going to bring more people to trainers.
I think so too.
It's going to.
And I think that's what the data is showing, is that you're going to see a continued rise in that, because it's just going to be, I don't think it'll ever not be nuanced. Yeah. And so having a professional, a coach, someone who's educated, experienced in the field, helping people navigate these waters, I think are going to become even more important, because I think with the rise of these GLP-1s, it's going to bring more people that were probably not even going to be in the fitness arena to the arena. And now you have the opportunity to
There's two reasons for that. One is you get your GLP-1 like Ozempic or Wegovy or whatever, and doctors are at least informed enough to know that to tell you need to strength train while you're doing this. It's a good idea. So people are more aware of the value of strength training, people who might not have considered it before. And then number two, it motivates you. This is just human behavior. Oh my God, I'm losing weight now. I think now I'm going to start working out. And so you're going to get a bunch of people who, like you said, Adam, who normally wouldn't really consider exercising, now consider it. And also these are people that are paying for a lot of them out of their own pocket. So they have expendable income and they're more likely to hire a trainer. You're going to see a greater demand for trainers because of this. And I think we're already starting to see it anyway, just from the coaches and trainers I'm talking to. They're like, oh yeah, I'm getting more people.
It seems like an influx of momentum, you know, that people are getting that wouldn't normally, I would think. I don't know. You get to that point where you're like really obese and it's just like, it starts to kind of get less and less likely that you're going to make steps towards, you know, improving yourself.
You know, speaking of training, Doug, when is our webinar? When's the trainer webinar we got coming up?
Yeah, November 12th at 4 p.m. Pacific.
That's right around the corner, right? So
we do, and these are free. We're just teaching trainers on.
I really do hope we grow those to be pretty crazy. Are you guys? I know you guys aren't even really paying attention to my journey, but we dropped today which I
knew nobody was going to believe that you were.
Yeah, your results and the pics of transformation. Yeah.
I mean, I told Dylan as we were creating this whole process, and you know, it's been kind of like a slow growth as far as the people that are engaging and watching. And I said, don't worry. Come time when we drop the transformation, it'll cause enough hoopla that will get more traction on it. I said, I think that's when people will start to wake up and kind of pay more attention. And with that comes all the naysayers, haters, and that. I just find it really interesting that the amount of effort I put into documenting everything and then disclosing what would happen and why it would happen, and that you still get this. This is like, I don't think I could have explained any more detail. I don't think I could have laid out any more of what I'm consuming, what I'm doing, what I'm using.
It's too hard to go through all your information. Just, you know, show up, make a comment.
Look, to be fair, it's remarkable. I mean, to be fair, you gained, what was it, 18 pounds of lean body mass? By the way, lean body mass is anything that's not body fat. So this is also including intramuscular fluid, which went up considerably, mainly because his diet changed. He started taking creatine. So you could probably take out of that 18 pounds, 7 of it being hydration, but still that leaves 11 to 12 pounds of lean body mass in 30 days. That's remarkable. But when you understand muscle memory, I keep saying this, people need to understand this. Muscle memory is crazy. It literally is crazy. And Adam isn't even close to the lean body mass that he carried for decades. So he still has muscle memory in the tank. Okay. So it's not like you're not even close to where you were always at, even before you competed as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So we're not even talking about later muscle memory. We're talking about muscle memory that would put you where you carried your body for a long time.
Yeah.
And it
sets a completely different precedent.
It's super powerful, guys. Like if you carry a lot of muscle and then you lose it all, and by the way, Adam lost it in a pretty aggressive fashion. He ate very little, and didn't work out, was under tremendous family stress. His wife almost died. So he didn't just like lose some muscle. He lost a lot more muscle than he'd lost probably ever.
Yeah, no, I definitely would say, I would attribute half of it in just the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
So a good portion of that happened over, a good 25 pounds of it, I would say, happened over years from competing to basically where we've
Which
been.
is understandable.
Right. Like I've reduced volume. I'm not dieting and training like I was before.
You're just on TRT instead of.
Yes. It's been a slow kind of drop for the other 25 pounds over the course of, say, 5 years or whatever or more. But then I'd say the other half happened dramatic. That's why, too, I think the point you're making, I do think the first 20 to 20, by the way, that's the reason why I told Dylan to put 25 pounds. He was asking like, hey, are we going to put, watch a bodybuilder build back 50 pounds. Like, no, don't put that pressure on me. I said, I don't want to. I mean, I don't know.
That would be hard.
Yeah, that would be hard, and to get all back to peak shape, that took a long time to get to that level. I don't even want to do that, to be honest. I said, but I'm pretty confident 25 pounds of that, I'm going to get back relatively quick, because I know that at least half of it was due to the last 6 to 8 months.
And the thing is, what you're trying to show,
visible, dude,
because what you could have done is made it happen slower by training more than was necessary. This was the big point of the documentation, is that when people tap into this, what they tend to do is overdo it, but then they don't realize they're overdoing it because they still gain 10 pounds of muscle or 5 pounds of muscle. So like, oh, I'm progressing. You actually did more than was necessary, which slows down your progress. If you do things the right way, you'll progress. And if you have muscle memory behind you, you progress very quickly. And again, talk to any doctor, talk to anybody who's ever had surgery or a limb that was in a cast. You don't even have to work out. You just take your leg out of the cast, start walking around, and boom, the muscle just magically appears from when you were super, skinny. We've all experienced. That's called muscle memory. It's real. It's epigenetic craziness that just happens. So when you're looking at those kind of gains, it was a combination of muscle memory plus experience and know-how. And the know-how was, don't overdo it. Yeah. Just train appropriately.
Stay in that Goldilocks zone.
That was the main thing I think I wanted to get across to the audience, was not, trying to sell it to somebody that you could do this too. It's like this. That wasn't at all. It was more so like, how many people do you think have been in shape before, fallen off, gotten back in, fallen off, gotten back in enough times, and when they come back to getting back in shape, they overdo it in that process, and how minimal they need to actually do to get back to where they were, because the body will remember that. And I think that was the main takeaway. And it was designed to be an inspiring, positive thing, I think. Also wanted to highlight the beauty of being 40 something years old and having years of training. It's like, because I think that's a message too that I wish would die, which is this, like, oh, when you get older, it's so hard, it's so much more difficult to build muscle. It's like, well, I mean, I guess if you waited till 45 and you just started lifting for the first time, it's harder than if you would have started at 20. But for those that are young and they have the opportunity to be consistent, and consistent doesn't mean like you never take a day off for 20 years. It means that over the course of 20 years, you've spent more time of it lifting weights than you didn't. And boy, will that pay off when you get into your 40s, because you will be surprised how little you have to do to maintain that muscle mass. I think it's a very awesome thing to communicate to people, and by no means was trying to pull one over on people or at all. I think, and even the learning lesson for me, there were the little bit surprising was, there was multiple times in this when we were documenting this where I wanted to do more. And there's a part. You got
the camera on you.
Yeah, but and I knew what I was trying to prove, so I'm like, no, I'm better off not doing enough and then knowing there's still more room for me than for me to overreach and then shoot myself in the foot. And so
it's just a great example of what we talk about all the time on the podcast. Yeah. It's like, it's the visual of literally like how we try our best to prescribe to your average person. This is the methods that, have been proven, but it's like they need to see that. And so you going through that, it shows, the potential for it.
Speaking of bodybuilding, I've been watching that short series on Netflix on Vince McMahon. I forgot that he started the WBF.
Yeah.
The World Bodybuilding Federation. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
For a second, he tried to compete with the IFBB.
Wow.
But it was so cringy. It was so bad.
Yeah.
He had bodybuilders, and his spin was that they were going to be characters.
Yeah.
So they'd come dressed as like a soldier or like a whatever, and then they dance. They do like a performance. Yeah, bro. It was bad.
Wow.
And it failed. It totally failed. Completely.
I mean, it's not much different than what he tried to do with XFL.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I knew he was part of that.
Yeah, that's his baby too.
Yeah.
Like,
what a great document! What a great series, though. It's really. I remember the growth.
Meaning to watch that.
Like we were kids when Hulkamania really took hold. I remember that. I remember how big of a deal that was when we were kids. And they
eat your vitamins, kids.
Hey, it was, what was it? Was it WrestleMania 3 or 4? Where they had Hulk versus Andre the Giant. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember how big of a deal that was and how they promoted that.
I also remember, which one of the most interesting part of the documentary for me was, I remember being a kid. I was into it at this time. when WCW came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I never made, as a kid, I was like, what is this federation? And it's on, I had what was it, Monday also night?
Yeah.
And they were competing. I'm like, all of a sudden this company comes out of nowhere that I hadn't even heard of and then rivaled it. And so hearing the backstory of how they did that financially basically was backed by, what's his name? The TV guy. The guy who owns the channel. I can't think of his name right now. The big billionaire.
Yeah.
He was the one who backed it. And so he threw all this money at it in order to compete with WWF. And so now I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's how that happened. And then how they started to pull all the wrestlers over.
It's interesting too. It brings us back to a more naive time because there was that whole period where there was this doctor that got in trouble because he was prescribing them steroids. And everybody's like, what? They take steroids. Remember what they look like? They were showing pictures of these videos. Like, the Ultimate Warrior,
like balloon animals.
Yeah, Ravishing Rick Rude. All these guys. They look like they were like bodybuilders, on stage.
Yes.
And I remember everybody being like, "What? They're not natural." And then Hulk Hogan was on Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
And Arsenio asked him, "Do you take steroids?"
He denied it, yeah.
And he's like, "No, I've never used." I'm like, "Come on, bro, you should have told the truth."
I know.
You should have told
I don't think. Yeah, we weren't ready for it back then.
No.
That's what it
Balco
was.
stuff and all that.
I mean,
now they don't even pretend. They're just like, whatever.
no.
I know there's a part of me that I guess I shouldn't say I felt bad because anybody, I think if you lie, you get what's coming to you. But there was, and this happened in our space. We have people that we know that have been in the space as longer than we have. And, it was, even when I was talking about it, it wasn't quite in vogue yet. Like, it wasn't like something that people were.
You couldn't admit it.
Yeah. People used to, so there was a lot of if you think about the big magazine names and people in fitness, even before we came up, it was very popular to lie about being on steroids. And then once you've lied for your first 10 years or 15 years,
can't go back.
Yeah, it's really tough to go back. It's a scary thing. And so a lot of these guys have doubled and tripled down on their all natural. And it's like, why? But, back then it was way more taboo to talk about those things. So when I'm reading these comments too, I think that's one of the funniest things about my thing. It's like, I have never not disclosed everything that I've taken. Like, I've talking about steroids openly since the very first day I turned on Instagram and shared the entire journey. It's like
such an easy way for people to make themselves feel good, to just shit on somebody and be like, oh, steroids.
I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? If you took an average guy and you put him on just a boatload of anabolic steroids, and he didn't have any muscle memory.
Head to head, I'd kick his ass still.
You would have beat him
because
muscle memory is so much more powerful than that.
Way more powerful. That's the huge advantage in that situation.
There's more. It's the craziest thing you'll ever experience if you've ever experienced this. And again, if you've ever broken a limb, you know exactly.
And I think when you communicate that, I think the thing that people get the knee jerk reaction is like, you're not saying that taking steroids or testosterone doesn't help. It doesn't help big time. It does help big time. Yeah. But imagine if you think that helps big time, muscle memory is even more powerful. Like just wrap that around your simple little brain. It's like it's not that we're saying that testosterone does not help big time. It's a huge advantage to be on synthetic testosterone for sure. Okay. But that's how powerful muscle memory is. Muscle memory is even more powerful. That it's like you could take all the drugs in the world to try and get big, and you're not going to beat
somebody who was once
Casey Vider or me at building muscle in 1 month's time after we've lost 50 to 100 pounds of muscle. Just not going to happen.
By the way, this exists. It's an evolutionary thing. It exists to protect us from illness after injury. Like, it's a very powerful signal. Anyway, so we're going to be heading out to Florida at the end of the week. Did you guys make sure you got your Brain FM all set up?
Oh my God, yes.
That's my goal. I still have yet, all the times that we've done the trip across to Florida, I have yet to have a very successful, like, not feel like dog shit. I feel like I can't sleep on the plane like you do. Yeah. You have this ability.
It's a long-winded one.
You don't do the Brain FM on the plane?
No, I haven't done it. Not on a Florida flight.
That'll put you to sleep, dude.
Yeah.
And
that's all I listen to.
Now, what happens with our time on this one? Like when we fly over there, we leave early in the morning. So we
got to leave here early because we fly to San Francisco.
Right.
So we fly to San Francisco, I think 9:30 a.m. I don't know if we have a stop, and then we get
because it's a direct flight.
It's direct, and then the next day is when we're doing the talk.
I know, but when do we what Florida time?
It's 3 hours behind us, right?
No, ahead of us. So we get there at 6 o'clock at night.
So that's the problem with sleeping on the way there.
I know.
So if you sleep on the way there, you're taking a nap in the middle of the day. You're going to sleep.
God, I hate sitting awake on a plane though. I don't know how you guys do it.
You never do it. You don't even know what it's like.
But you're just sitting there and you're like you can't do anything. I want to shoot myself.
I mean,
you guys know how I am in here.
So
sitting as long as
so
I can.
how
put the
I
focus
will
on, and you
the way I will use Brain FM.
emails.
I'm more like that. I will use Focus Brain FM
That's
on the
what I
flight
do.
over to do work, and then tonight.
Sleep.
Or when we land that night, I will need it to help me assist me to go to sleep because
I'll just sleep the whole time.
Because we're 3 hours before. Let's say we go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, then it's really like 7 p.m. our time. That's where it's going to come in handy for me. The flight over, it would ruin me to do that. I'll stay awake.
The Mozart Brain FM. I'm like dialed
You're doing the Focus.
dude.
Now, what are you working on?
Just whatever I can do to think about like the next program, the next business iteration, the next anything. Like I just like to feel like I have some kind of productivity.
I want to see your notes because I feel like your notes
I'll show you
50% like fitness stuff and then 50% conspiracy.
Pictures of dicks. That's what I picture.
That was my next diet. Was all the
I picture his
diet.
note like we're going through Justin's notes. Like, oh, this looks really into the dicks. You know what I'm saying?
I draw a lot, dude. It's a very recognizable image.
People that don't get that inside joke are like, what is he talking about? When Justin was a kid,
Diddy over here.
He used to
okay,
get in
guys?
trouble for doing that. Okay?
What movie is that? That's from a movie too. What movie is that where the kid does that?
It was at the end.
It's in a movie.
Yeah. What's it called? It was the McLovin movie.
Oh, is it that one?
No, was it super bad?
Yeah, it was super bad. At the end, he was drawing on his trapper keeper.
Yes,
It was all these like
yes.
flying.
Is that the helicopter?
That was so me.
Yes.
Why,
Because it's funny. It's funny and it's
I don't know.
outrageous, and like you hand it to your friend.
I think Freud would like a word with you, Justin.
I should draw
think he
that.
has some
I would
theories.
make like a paper airplane. I'd like throw it at somebody. They go, "Oh my god!"
Oh no, what is
I
this?
just I love the
Tell me
reaction.
he's working on something right now. He told me. Did you tell him or no? Did you not tell him?
I didn't tell him.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What-
I am
what-
working
what-
on something.
He's got some undercover project.
But
right
you
now.
tell him, not me, huh? That's
Yeah, well,
right.
he didn't tell me
no,
either. He just what he told me was, "Hey, watching the whole docuseries you did inspired me to
inspired
do
me,
something." And so,
Justin's gonna do the opposite.
watch how fat I get.
Watch this, guys. Watch this.
You think it's impressive what Adam did?
Very
Watch
little
this.
effort. You could look like this.
No.
Hey, I tell you what,
That
that
would be
was
awesome.
that was one of the.
And then just play the video backwards.
Hey, that was one of the most eye-opening things I ever learned in the fitness space was learning about how before and afters were taken.
Oh, it's so disgusting.
That
So disgusting.
I mean, after it,
Well, there's two things that they do. One is they do what you did. Well, they'll find somebody, have them lose hella muscle, and then have them gain it back. Whoa, 30 days. Our supplement, look what it did.
Right.
Or they'll just have someone get in bad shape and then pretend that's the before.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's the after.
That I mean, so from a marketing standpoint, and the company who's like has no integrity, brilliant.
You know, let me
brilliant
add,
idea.
I'm going to add this real quick
Smart
for
and
people
easy.
who are like, oh, Adams, whatever. Listen, people, do you guys have any idea? I'm talking to the audience here. Do you have any idea how many pictures of before and afters we have of people who followed our programs? We have thousands and thousands of before and afters. We've never, ever, ever once used the before and after to sell a program. Why? Because it goes against everything that we talk about. It emphasizes the body obsession. It highlights one person's results and it makes you think that that's what you can accomplish. We don't sell fitness that way. And let me tell you, every marketing team we've ever worked with thinks we're stupid because it would sell so much. So this whole like Adam's, journey thing, that's not the reason why we're doing it.
Oh, it's so funny you say that
Because we have a ton of
we've
before and
got
afters we can
there's
use.
YouTube comments about that
I don't
too.
even need
Oh,
that.
these guys are such sellouts. They say they don't do anything for transformation. I'm like, Jesus, I can't win, bro. People want me to show them everything and document it. We're like, tell them what to. Then I
This is
do
the content we
then they're
want.
like, oh, all they're trying to do is
sell out.
push something and they're lying. I'm like, fuck everybody, dude. No wonder why we want to disappear from all this
Yeah,
shit. It's like people are just so much, dude.
Yeah, it's
Too
all right.
much, man.
It's all right. On November 13th at 6 p.m. Pacific on Mind Pump Media on Instagram, we're going to live stream us creating the next MAPS program. We'll watch a portion of that. It's a good time. Make sure you show up. Hey, look, if you like meat, that's awesome. But you want to get the best meat, go to ButcherBox. They deliver grass-fed meat, crate-free pork, wild-caught fish to your door at great prices. So it literally comes in a box to your door, and you get healthy meat, so you get that protein, you get those essential fats, you can build muscle, burn body fat. It's a great company. And right now, if you go to butcherbox.com/mindpump, you can get a whole turkey breast, or ham included in your first box, plus $20 off. Again, that's butcherbox.com/mind pump. All right, back to the show.
First question is from Matthew Reiner. I travel a lot for work. What kind of isometric exercises can I do while sitting in the car?
Oh, that's a good question. Just for people who aren't familiar, isometric exercise, isometric contraction is simply when you flex a muscle and you don't move, right? So you have what's known as a concentric contraction.
Right now.
Yeah, yes. You can do a concentric contraction. That would be like me curling my arm. That's my bicep concentrically contracting. Eccentric would be opening my arm. Isometric is just holding, right? And isometric contractions are great when you're driving because you can't move. You're holding the steering wheel. You're in one place. And the best exercises are the ones, in my opinion, that kind of counter some of the negative effects of sitting for a long period of time. So I really like bringing my shoulder blades back and down, pressing the back of my head into my seat, but not just the back of my head, the kind of bottom part of my skull. They call this a nodule here underneath the skull there. So I'll push that in there while pulling my shoulder blades back. And I also like pushing my knees apart and activating the abducting muscles of my hips. Those two movements can help me feel better. Otherwise, I tend to start to feel pain in my back and my hips.
Yeah, I do something similar. I like, especially with the shoulders and the arms, like trying to extend my arms and then,
push them down
pull
and
back. Yeah. And so I'm in this like position where I'm getting a bit more contraction there with the arms and then the shoulder blades together. But yeah, there's times too, I externally rotate a lot, and I notice that when I'm pressing on the gas. Yeah. So I try to do the opposite and actually like get that internal rotation and hold that and like add tension to that. So depending on, some of your pain points, those are good ones.
I recently talked about in the series, it was one of the first videos, I did the Zone 1 test. And in the Zone 1 test, I take, which is from our Prime program, I take the viewers over to the wall. I have Dylan shoot me, doing all the things you guys are talking about right now. And the point I make in the video is literally what I just said or what you guys are talking about, which is once you learn what muscles to activate to bring you back into a more advantageous posture or position, then you can do it anywhere. You don't need to be with a wall or in the gym. You can do it on a plane. You can do it in your car.
Sitting, laying down, yeah.
And so I highly recommend, especially to any of our viewers or listeners that have that program, because I think Zone 1 is arguably the most difficult for most people to do, and the one that will help and support your upper posture and the rounded shoulders and forward head that most people have, especially when you're sitting and you're driving. And so once you kind of understand what that feels like, you could do that sitting right in your car.
Mm-hmm.
You could, and I actually will do the same thing. I even add the pelvic tilt. So
Yes.
I'll activate my abs. I'm doing it right now, right? So I just activated my hips, squeezing my glutes, my core is activated, and I'm doing that right now. That relieves my low back a lot, especially when I'm sitting on a plane or in a car. But all of that comes from the practicing Zone 1 test. Once you've practiced that test enough and you understand how to flex all those muscles, then you could virtually do it anywhere at any time. And in fact, this is what I tell clients is like, do this all the time. The more you're aware of this and the better you get at it, doing it throughout the day, the better off you're going to be.
I like the pelvic tilts a lot. Clients I used to train who had low back problems, I would have them go in, a posterior pelvic tilt, so that's tucking your tailbone. I'd have them hold that for 30 seconds, then I'd have them arch or do what's known as an anterior pelvic tilt, hold that. Then I'd have them find neutral, hold that. I'd also have them do something called wag the tail, where all you're doing there is you're taking the pelvis and you're shrinking one side of your body and then the other side of your body. And this just kind of loosens up the spine, because when you sit in one position for too long, muscles can start to get tight. You can start to feel, and this, like you go on a long, drive, you get out of the car and it feels like you got to stretch or move. And you could do this while you're driving. You can activate muscles while you're driving to make the drive more comfortable, to prevent some of the pain that comes from sitting for so long. And those of you that don't drive long distances, you can do this at your desk. If you have a desk job, these are things you could do without having to stand up that can prevent a lot of the kind of the pain that comes from just being inactive.
Oh yeah, and opening up that full lateral line once I'm out of the car is everything for me to really get that extension with the hip flexors. So that's my go-to.
Next question is from JT70374.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on posing after a workout? I'm hoping to gain a better connection and control over different muscles. Is it something I should incorporate into my training, or is it something just for competitors?
So they're referring to bodybuilding poses. And I think what are the compulsory poses? Like
Bruce Lee did this, right?
Bruce Lee did lots
level.
of isometric contractions and flexing. He did. In fact, the first time I ever saw a lat spread, which is a bodybuilding pose, it was Bruce Lee. It was on Enter the Dragon. And he does that big kind of lat, V move or whatever. So the poses are like what? Front double bicep, back double bicep, front lat spread, back lat spread. You have the hands overhead, ab and quad pose. And I think those are all the side tricep. Okay. Now, I like posing. I like flexing in between sets or at the end because it helps you connect to the different muscle groups. And then that it tends to translate into better connection while you work out. Now, I don't think all the poses are equal. I think some are more important than others. One that I used to love teaching clients for two reasons. One, because people have difficulty doing this one. But two, because the muscle group or area that people tend to have the most difficulty connecting to had to do with their back muscles, and in particular, their scapula. Their scapula. That people have a tough time retracting their scapula. They have a tough time rotating them out, right? Bringing them out, bringing them in. Most people can shrug, no problem.
What
Depressing.
about the vacuum pose too?
Vacuum poses would be the second one that I would like doing because it helps activate the TVA, right? But going back to the lat spread, most people, and by the way, there's athletes who are very fit who work out who can't do a lat spread. They don't possess the control to take their scapula and spread them out and do what's called a lat spread. Now, if they practice and get this, and my wife was like this. My wife, she could perform on the silks. She traveled with Cirque du Soleil for a while, very strong, very fit. She couldn't do a lat spread. And I remember teaching her how to do it. Once she was able to do it, she had better connection to her back muscles doing back exercises. So that's the one that I used to, teach most of my clients.
So I just covered this in the series also. And somebody was asking if I would pose afterwards. And what I said to the audience was that the most valuable thing about posing, in my opinion, is being able to flex every individual muscle, because all resistance training is flexion of the muscle with some sort of a resistance, meaning bands, body weight, dumbbells, barbells, cables. That's all it is flexion of a muscle. And so if you can connect and flex a muscle with no resistance, then your ability to perform every exercise with relatively good form is going to be very easy. That means if you can do what Sal's saying, where you can flare the lats, you can control and flex the lats with no resistance, just in an isometric position.
Add resistance.
Then you can go into an exercise where you're upside down, you're pulling from down to up to down, from the side, and all you think about is, oh, this is for my lats, so I'll flex my lats and do the movement, and you'll perform the movement really well. So learning to do that has incredible value. I think the science that supports the muscle gain you get from posing or flexing is weak. And I think it's mostly connected to the fact that
you do the exercise better.
Exactly. And so for me, I was telling them, like, I'm not competing anymore, so there's no reason for me to be doing it anymore. But I do think it's very valuable for people to learn how to do that.
Well, I think too, like, in something else you covered in the series was about how to make the weights like feel heavier.
Yes.
Right. And so that, this sort of technique of being able to understand how to activate the muscle and intensify your contraction without weight, would feed right into that using a lighter weight.
That's a great point, Justin, because that is another added value to if you can connect and flex with no weight, then you can take really lightweight,
make it intense,
and make it super intense. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, but the scapular stuff, I'm going to just stand by this. Like, I think it's important for most people. You need to learn how to take your scapula, spread them out, retract them. You need to be able to elevate them, depress them, and then you should also be able to wing your scapula, all without adding resistance. And when you can do that, you can control one of the most complex joints in the body, which is your shoulder, and you'll be able to connect better to shoulder, chest, and back exercises as a result. So if you're watching this and listening to this, like, practice those back flexing, movements. It'll make your workouts much more effective. Hey, sorry to interrupt. Real quick, MAPS Resistance and MAPS OCR for this month are 50% off. If you're interested, click on the link below. All right, back to the show.
Next question is from Exploring This Life. I get dizzy after performing every set of deadlifts. I warm up to my PR of 195 pounds. I fuel up before my workouts, and I drink Element with 5 milligrams creatine during my workout. Am I not getting enough oxygen? Is this due to ineffective breathing?
You are not getting enough oxygen, but this is probably due to the drop in blood pressure that some people get after exerting themselves under a lot of force. So the deadlift is a full body. I've had clients like this. So the deadlift, and I'll give you the remedy right now. So it's a full body exercise. It's a lot of tension. You driving up, and when you're flexing and tensing the muscles and exerting yourself, your blood pressure goes up. Yeah. Then you put the weight down on the floor. You let go of it. You no longer have a weight. You get this subsequent blood pressure drop. And for some people, the drop happens lower than where the person is at baseline, and they get dizzy. Mm-hmm. And this is just something that happens to some people. There's a term for it. I can't, off the top of my head, can't remember what it is. But I had clients like this. I believe so.
Yeah.
And I used to, this is more common with women than men. It was rare for a male client to have this, but I'd have female clients like this, especially female clients who typically would have low blood pressure. Yeah. And what I would do with them is after they would put the weight down, I'd have them continue to squeeze their legs. So keep tensing your legs, stand up slowly, keep your legs flexed, and then slowly relax them. So you don't get this
huge crash.
This up in blood pressure and then this drop. It's up and then it kind of comes down. When you're flexing your legs really hard, that helps maintain the blood pressure so you don't get that big drop and then suddenly.
I used to have to do calf raises. Just do little standing calf raises right afterwards like that to just mitigate the huge crash.
By the way, this is like
this is like what they taught me when I was going to get up in the F-16.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. This is when they keep you from blacking out.
Yeah, it keeps you from passing out.
Oh, what do they tell you to do? How do they tell you to do that?
You have to push your feet everything so hard into the ground and like contract your quads and calves and everything as hard as you can.
Oh wow!
Because you're squeezing all the blood up and maintaining high blood pressure.
It makes sense. I just didn't know that was actually part of the protocol. They actually tell you to do that.
Yeah, they have special pants that even help, kind of emphasize that and squeeze for you, but you still have to do it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I remember one woman I trained. This was an issue for her, and we got really good at being able to deadlift without getting dizzy. But she had to master maintaining tension in her legs as she stood up. And what she would do, she'd put the weight down. I'd remind her, okay, flex your leg, keep your legs flexed. And then she'd let go of the bar. She'd stand up real slow, keeping her legs flexed, and then slowly release her legs. Boom.
I found a correlation too with people that were dieting low calorie too.
Always.
Yeah. So if you have someone who is dieting,
especially low carb.
Yes.
Especially low carb, because you lose so much fluid out of that. And you see this, and it also dilates the blood vessels. Ketones can do that. And so you see just low blood pressure.
There you go.
Next question is from James Ayers, 95. Before meeting your wives, what quality traits were most important to you when looking for a partner, especially for someone aspiring to be a future husband and father?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a cool question.
That's a good question, yeah.
Well, if you want to be a dad, that means you want to have kids. I think you want to find a woman that is caring, that also wants to have children. I think that's very important. And then, do they have similar values to you? Are they somewhat disciplined? Because you have to be disciplined throughout life. And then are they the kind of person that's going to be supportive to you, because you're going to go through times when you're not going to be great, and vice versa. And then a lot of the other stuff is individual, like things that you're into, in my opinion.
Yeah, two of the things that I think were so important to me about Katrina that I fell in love with is her confidence and security and who she was, and the fact that she was growth minded. Those two things were massive for me. At this point in my life, I had realized that I had a dating pattern of dating women that were insecure, although they looked like they were confident because they were beautiful or all these things, but they were very insecure. So her security and confidence in who she was so important. And then the fact that she was so growth minded. Those two traits, I think, were so powerful in our relationship working and then continuing to grow together and get even stronger 13 plus years later. So those are probably the most important. Aside from like what you said, I think that it's nice to have things in common. She likes sports. I like sports. Like we have similar taste in music and movies. Like those are all kind of pluses that I think that if we didn't have it in common, I still think that we could have worked it out fine. If the two that were so important at that point in my life was finding a confident, secure woman who was growth minded.
Justin,
killer body and blonde. That's it. I got real low standards. Yeah, no, it's similar to what you guys are saying, but it's like for me, it was really just like the morals in terms of like, what they stand for. Also, too, just seeing. I'm very much of an observer, so I watch sort of how people interact with each other, and I want to see, are you kind? Are you thoughtful? Are you going out of your way to help people? You're very much, like I'm just attracted to that. People that are look out for other people, and like just the growth minded part's huge for me too, and the self sufficiency. So I was like, if she's already has a good head on her shoulders, is going to be successful regardless of anybody kind of like stepping in. That's attractive to me. So
I have a bit of that as observer trait too, Justin, that I didn't realize that I had. Katrina obviously made me very aware of that with her. Like, and I guess looking back, I go, oh, that's true. That is something like I love when I can take her to a place that she's not familiar with anybody. I could bail on her, leave her.
Yep.
And know that when I come back and find her 30 minutes later, that she's not hiding in a corner or trying to find me because she's so freaked out, that she's holding the conversation and engaging with 5-10 people that are strangers that all of a sudden now within 5 minutes already like that is such an attractive quality for me to have, which I think feeds into the confidence and security. Like I think that is a big part of what made her like that. But I found myself observing her and putting her in positions like that to see how she would handle herself. And I felt like that was so attractive to see a woman that could do that.
You guys both mentioned growth minded. I think that's a big one. I know that really attracts me to my wife. I think growth minded is important because they're going to grow. So if you plan on being married to this person, the goal is to stay married forever for the rest of your life. You want someone who's growth minded because that's going to get you through a lot of challenging things. Yep. You hope they're not going to be the same person in 10 years. I hope you're not the same person. And so people who are growth minded tend to search for ways of becoming better. And so okay, like we're more likely to get through things because we're this person, this individual. Jessica was very growth minded. She was reading a lot. She was always very interested in self help. She was very interested in helping others. I said very caring. Red flags. This might be a good question. Like, what were red flags for you guys?
Oh yeah.
For me, a big red flag is if a woman that doesn't want kids or doesn't like kids. That's like one of the biggest red flags. Part of it was I had kids already, but the other part of it is it's very strange to me when anybody doesn't want to have kids, let alone a woman. It's such a strong thing, a driver to not want to have kids. Like, okay, you're really hurt or something's going on there, And I know I'm offending some people, but that's just a red flag for me.
To hammer home the growth minded thing, I believe that obviously marriage is lasting is already almost a 50-50 shot. I think marriages before the age of 25, the number's even worse, more grim than that. The percentage that actually stick with it that got married real young, I believe the main reason is because they were growth minded. Because when you're a teen in your early 20s, you're so, as much as you think you are mature and think you know who you are, a good part of your 20s and 30s is really figuring out who you are. And so if you lock in and get married at 20 something else, you better hope that you married a partner who is as growth minded as you are, because you're probably going to be very different humans 15 years. And so long as you're both open to growing, you most likely can grow together and learn to be able to compromise and do those things. If you have somebody who is set in their ways or growth is not important to them and you marry early, it is talk about a roll of the dice if it's going to work, And so that's part of why I've always been I've been an advocate for waiting until later. A big part of that is because it gives you that opportunity to grow and learn first before you even choose a partner. Because I tell you that the traits I was looking for when I found Katrina was very different than what I was looking for when I was 20,
what's interesting on that data, by the way? I've been going through a lot of this, and I'll bring this up on another episode because I have some other interesting stuff to say about this. But I looked at that data on getting married young and the odds of divorce. If the couple has strong
religious beliefs.
religious roots.
Yeah, totally different.
The odds go way down of divorce.
But I
It's
mean,
when you have two secular people who are young who get married.
And that feeds my point, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have two people that are spiritually minded people, then they're growth minded.
They're growth minded.
Yeah, yeah. That's part of like all regardless of what religion you're talking about, it's on the pursuit of being a better version of yourself.
Improvement. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you have two that are equally yoked in that, then the likelihood that they're going to be able to make it through is much higher than
and I again, to the observer thing, I peer into family dynamics too a lot, and like how the parents and that relationship is, and then grandma, and like that was one big quality that attracted me to Courtney too, is just like her caringness for her grandma, and like she just was like going out of her way to do things and make sure that happened before we'd even go on a date. And I'm just like, oh wow, that says a lot.
That's an important one, Justin, that I think a lot of people overlook too, is just understanding your partner's childhood comparison to yours, right? Like, especially if yours is very different. Like if there was anything that was probably challenging for Katrina and I when we first got together,
that's one of the top challenges.
Is we were raised very different as far as our family values and things like that, and so being able to understand where each of them are coming from and know that will cause a lot of controversy if you don't think about that or talk about it beforehand. You just, sometimes it's really easy to just fall in love with that person and not realize like you're also marrying a family and someone with certain family values and traditions and things like that. If you don't understand that, that can cause a lot of rift too in a relationship.
A lot to consider.
Yeah.
All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. 30% body fat. For men, this is way too high. This is actually a bit high for women as well. So in today's episode, we're talking about how you can go from 30 to 10. What is 10% body fat? This is when you have a visible six-pack. Can you go from 30 to 10%? Yes, it's possible, but not if you guess along the way. So we're going to talk about how you can do that in today's episode.
Now, there's a huge range, right, of like body types.
Yes.
Some people can run a little bit heavier or a little bit higher body.